Monroe and Simmons are absent. Parker,
Here.
Stacy,
Present.
Shadle,
Here.
Sanders, and Sellers is absent. We do have a quorum, Chair.
Thank you. Could everyone join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure.
I pledge allegiance. And item 4 would be approval of the agenda.
So move.
We
Second.
have motion by Clem, second by Parker. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 5 would be approval of the minutes from September 16, October 7, October 15, October 21, 2024 meetings. Yes.
Why so many dates?
I would assume that it just took a while for the clerk. Go ahead.
I think you just answered it. Yep.
It just took a while for her to get them done.
So we never approved these other dates before?
No, just through
Approved
September
prior to
9th.
the meeting. We haven't approved the minutes of the meetings.
Okay.
Did we get a motion?
So move.
Motion by
Second.
Clem, second by Parker. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carry. Public comments would be on agenda items, limited to 3 minutes. Bernie?
I'll make this relatively quick. I did some time, put a lot of time into the budget as it currently exists. And I come to the conclusion that our governmental funds will expend about $67,819,000, which includes capital procurement of $14,919,000, leaving a cash reserve of approximately $31,312,000, which is about 59% of the normal operating expenditures of $52,903,000, not including one-time capital requirements. If our fund balance policy calls for 6 months of cash for operating expenditures, I think we are okay. The same pretty much is true for the proprietaries funds as it is. I was able to determine from the budget documents that I received through the emails that we have a capital budget of approximately $69 million. That may have changed a little bit because I'm not privy to the current new information. I see it is entirely possible to execute all of this according to the way that the city had put the capital into place with using reserves and within using loans and grants. In the end, the city should end up with $176,430,000 at the end of the next fiscal year, of which $121,871,000 belongs to the pension funds, leaving a balance of approximately 50, if I can see these numbers, $54,500,000 in our cash bank, which will meet almost all of our ongoing operating requirements for the fiscal year, for this fiscal year and for the next fiscal year. So I have, there are some things that are wrong in the budget itself. I have a whole list of suggestions that we should be looking at seriously to align the cost to the functions so we can determine exactly what the function, the service that the function is providing is actually costing. I'd like to get rid of the interdepartmental department, and even there's retirements in there, they should belong to our current operating departments. There's still expenses to those departments. Having said all that, I think I've said enough, You guys have a good day with this budget. When I get the next set of information, I can put it all together into my model. My model can look at things and do some what-if analysis on what we can do and what we cannot do. So far, I'm cautiously optimistic. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernie.
Thank you, Bernie.
Item 7 would be discussion of the following budgets by City Manager Boyer and Director Richter. It's grants, fire pension, police pension, foreign fire insurance, and library.
All right, good evening, everyone. Kurt, if you could go ahead and pull up the grants, starting with the OVW grant. So this is the, we're going to go through all the grants and everything on the agenda for tonight, and if there's any time left over, we're going to discuss the tax abatements, tax levies, and any revisions. The revisions would be anything that's needed to be changed since we started this process through today. We have pretty much finalized everything in the budget. Everything's looking good and it's balanced. We have made some necessary cuts in certain areas, and we have made adjustments where necessary. So anyway, let's go ahead and move forward with the grants. The OVW grant, so that's the Office Against Violence of Women. The police department's received this grant for the past 7 years. The funds support a portion of the Special Victims Unit detectives' wages and training, and the grants also support wages of the state's attorney office and Voices. So that's one of our partners. There is no match on this. Brownfields grant. So we've got the EPA grant for the demo and remediation of the dry cleaners at 17 through 19 West Main Street. There's no match, and there's about 3 years left to complete this. Bulletproof vests, that's through the Department of Justice grant, so that pays 50% of bulletproof vests for officer replacement vests. It requires a 50% match.
Rob,
Yes? We got a question?
I just wanted to let council know, I didn't rerun, this was from last week, when we didn't cover last week's, and I didn't rerun it over again, because I had it at your spot for last week.
Yep.
So it is on the screen. So I just didn't want you to be confused. The document I handed out right now will be going over at item number 10.
Okay, if there's any questions on that, otherwise we can move on.
What were you saying about this, the laundromat?
So that's an EPA grant for demolition, so it has to be remediated and demolished. We're getting a EPA grant for that, no match, and we've. I think the total amount's about, was it 3 million?
1.7 million we
1.7,
received.
sorry. Yep.
1.7 million?
Yep.
And we have received it.
Yes, we've confirmed it. We don't have the money in our account. It's a reimbursement grant. So we outlay the capital and they reimburse us up to $1.7 million, which should be more than enough to complete the project.
You said it's a reimbursement? Mm-hmm. What portion of it is the city's?
0.
Okay, so leaving off, any more questions on that Brownfields grant? Okay. Moving on, we had the DUI forfeitures, so that's restricted use. The funds received through Stevenson County Clerk, used by the PD in the enforcement of DUIs. Items include software and equipment. Plan to utilize a portion for the implementation of the e-citation, so that's a new electronic ticketing. Moving on. K-9, again, this is a restricted fund, and it's funded through donations for police dogs. This is used to support the purchase of those dogs, the supplies, care, and kenneling of the canines. Okay, moving down to the sex offender account. So these funds are received from the the registration of sex offenders in the local area. Funds are required to be distributed to City of Freeport at 35%, the Sex Offender Management Board at 5%, Illinois State Police Sex Offender Fund at 30%, and the Illinois Attorney General at 30%. Okay, moving on. Illinois Department of Natural Resources, round 2. These are grants from the Illinois Department of Natural Resources for demolition, so there's no match on these. Explorer Club, these are restricted funds received through donations, and they're used to support the Explorer Club at the police department. The Explorer Club introduces young people to the field of policing. Okay, Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity grants. We received a $200,000 grant. It was received for the purposes of demolitions, and there's no match for this. This was gained through Senator Stewart's involvement in the appropriation process. Next. Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, demo grants, and this is through Bivens. It's a $100,000 grant, no match, and it would also go toward demos. Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity Community Development Block Grant. So this is for housing rehabilitation. It's a $500,000 grant with a $55,000 match. Wayne, could you join and just mention some of the uses for it?
Yeah, that's what you've been seeing lately with the housing rehabilitation grants. We just did one on Center Street. Got another 2 more coming up. 1010 South Adams is another one. So that's the line item right there that you see. That's grant that we received to fund those housing rehabilitations.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
What did you say? It was a $500,000 grant?
Yes.
And what did you say after that?
The
With
match.
55,
Yeah, the match was $55,000. So the city pays $55,000, we get $500,000. Approximately 10%. Next, we've got the Police Auxiliary Restricted Fund. So these funds are received through donations, and they're used to support the auxiliary police department activities. Next is the Illinois Housing Development Authority Strong Communities Grant. So this is a $300,000 grant for demolition of homes, and there's no match for this. Next is the Illinois Law Enforcement Training Standards Board Recruitment and Retention Grant. This is $52,000 to be used to recruit and retain police officers, and this does not include a match. Next is the 911 Emergency Telephone System Board. This is a restricted fund per Resolution 2024-68, and the funds are to be used for the operation of the city's 911 system. Illinois EPA grant for EV chargers. There's a $320,000 grant with a match of $180,000 that's required, and this is going to be part of our first opportunity to install some EV charging stations downtown.
Rob.
Yes, sir. Oh, got another question? Yes.
the $300,000 grant for demo of homes,
Yes.
has that grant been used all up?
We still got grant money for that. There's going to be another 10 houses coming here for approval in next council meeting to be using that money.
How much do we have left on that?
We have most of it left at this point. I have 10, like I said, there's 10 houses coming that'll spend it, and then probably, I think I'm working on another 6 after that. So you'll see houses coming up for demolition using those funds.
So those funds will be used up this year?
I anticipate close to it. If not, it'll leak over probably into the first quarter of 25.
Director Dutman, do you know how much we've spent of that thus far?
I think it's right around 25,000.
The numbers on the screen left a balance of 270, so in the neighborhood of 29.
Pretty close.
Have we started on this paperwork today?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Have we got to this yet?
No.
No.
Okay. So you just saw that on the screen?
Yeah.
And you said 27,000?
29, the balance was 270 and change. But there was
Okay.
one that we passed that the money hasn't been spent yet, but it's allocated.
Are we speaking about the this SCP grant or the demolition grant for the 300,000? Is that what we're talking about?
Okay.
Or I'm asking which one it is.
That's what I was speaking
Okay.
of.
Yes, she's speaking of the Illinois Housing Development
Yep.
Authority, Strong Community.
Okay, wait. So the Strong Communities Program grant, we've demolished one house with those grant funds to date. I have 9 properties coming forward where we're going to be using those funds for the demolition. We're going to be using the funds for that grant to demolish them. Part of the reason in the delay was when we first received this grant, the Illinois Housing Development Authority wanted us to have deeds to the property. So I had, I believe, 12 properties coming through that I bought from the trustee so that we would actually have title or a deed to the properties. Working with IDA, I was able to use the fast track demolition process, which is those orange signs. We had a letter from our attorney that they were able to accept so that we no longer have to actually have title to the properties. So all that being said, I anticipate now that I don't actually have to acquire title first to demolish the properties. I anticipate this money being spent quite quickly.
Go ahead.
Are the houses you're speaking of on the east side of town? The 9 coming soon?
So the 9 coming up that are going to be up for the next bid. I have the bid openings the 14th. So of those, one of them is 217 Henderson is going to be on that list. It's going to be in the 3rd ward or east of the river.
Alderman Sellers.
Yes, so you're telling me that whatever is left, you could use that for other houses, correct?
That's my plan. I mean, so what ended up, when this grant started, we had to have, as I was stating, clean title. So I was using this grant money for properties that we would purchase from the tax sale from the trustee. I was working with IDA to try to expedite our process because unfortunately we have a large amount of blighted properties to demolish. And I worked with them and had our attorney write a letter stating that we had legal authority through the statutory fast track demolition process. And they said, they looked at that letter and said that would be enough for us to use on those orange signs to fund those demolitions. So I anticipate this grant funding being spent quicker moving forward. Yep.
Yes. So in this whole year, we've had one house with the $300,000.
That is correct because I had to have clean title to the property at that point.
So there were no houses that were available to be condemned, to be torn down before getting the 12.
That is correct. We obviously, I believe the numbers are at this point 26 demolished properties. I don't have that number in front of me, but that's what comes to my mind. So we were using the city funds to demolish the properties as opposed to the 300,000 because the state put the requirement that said if I put an orange sign on it, that's fast track demolition. That means the public or the person who owns the property actually still owns it, but we put the orange sign on it, which allows us to demolish it. IDA at one point said, you cannot do that. You need to have clean title to the property to demolish it. So I worked with them and said, hey, we've got plenty of blighted properties here, unfortunately. What can we do? And they said, well, they worked with myself and our attorney, and we worked on a way to expedite the process to unlock some of these funds, spend it quicker.
Go ahead.
So did you say that there was only one house on the east side of the town?
That's not, I think we're getting all mixed up. The city is very fortunate to have many pools of money to demolish properties, but each pool of money has a different set of rules. So there's FEMA money that comes and it says, here's a set of rules for you to demolish properties on the east side. That's acquisition and demolition. People who own the properties have to voluntarily sell those properties before we can demolish them. That's one pool of money. That's most of your east side demolitions that we talk about are in that pool of money. This pool of money has a requirement that says the city has to have proper title or legal authority to demolish it, and it has to be a residential property. So could I use some of this money to demolish an east side property? Yes. However, most of this money is being spent to demolish single-family residences, duplexes that are blighted, and that the city has acquired the proper ownership or judicial process to demolish them. So,
I just know on the east side of town, there's a lot of buildings with orange signs.
well, yeah, I could explain that too. So back in the story I was told from my building inspector is that the building inspector went around in 2019 and condemned properties for demolition, put a lot of orange signs up. And the city manager at that time told him to stop because they were in the process of getting the FEMA funds for a buyout. So when you put an orange sign on somebody's property, you give them 30 days notice. And if they don't fix the property, here comes a bulldozer. They're knocking it down. Too bad, so sad you didn't fix your house up. Here's the bill. That's what happens when the orange sign goes up. Well, the city manager at that time said, we would like to work with FEMA so that the person doesn't just get their house demolished, they get actual funding from FEMA to buy the property, and then also the city gets money to demolish it. So that's why you see many orange signs that didn't get demolished. It was a move by a former city manager to actually offer aid to some of those people.
I have a question.
Council, if you would be so kind, we do have quite a bit to get through, and this is a topic that we can definitely talk about.
Yeah, I can always come in and out.
Is that okay? Yeah, thank
No
you.
problem.
Yep,
Thank
no
you.
problem.
Excuse me, Chair.
Yes.
Director Duckman, my recorder died. Could I borrow yours to finish out
Yeah,
the meeting? Thank you.
Raise your hand.
We need to have a pause while you exchange that?
Kurt, are we recording okay back there? Okay, no pause needed. Thank you.
Rachel had her hand up.
Okay, just moving along, we're at the EV grants.
Just 1 second. Alderman Simmons.
Well, just a quick question before you move on from this, for Director Duckman. Okay. So my question is, I understand that you have separate money from FEMA, but there are about 3 houses
She's just got to hit record.
on the east side that you have not been successful in the past few years purchasing to demolish with this grant. They are clearly abandoned, and they are houses that are frequently being dumped at. So my suggestion is that you use some of this for that, seeing as it has different stipulations, to get those houses tore down to prevent some dumping.
It's a good idea and noted. And next week I've got one property coming, and I'm working on. I've talked with you before. I'm working on those other ones as well. So I appreciate that.
So I guess my suggestion is I would like to see those on the list that you added to this list that you have.
Sure.
For that. this
Thank you,
budget.
Manager Boyer.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Moving on, let's see, we're at the DOT Safe Streets for All. So the creation of a plan to increase transportation safety throughout the city. So there's a $400,000 grant. It's a match of $100,000, and that's split between 2024 and 2025. So we actually just had a meeting on that this afternoon. All right, moving on. Federal portion of the Pretzel City Transit. So there's no city match required for this. The grant amount is $198,000.20. The city employs a project compliance and oversight monitor, and the Senior Resource Center provides the service here. Okay, moving on to IDOT state portion of the Pretzel City Transit Downstate Operation Assistance Program, or DOPA. There's no city match for this, and the grant amount is $1,268,740. Next is the federal capital grant for Pretzel City Transit. This is for cameras on the buses, and there's no match for this. The Illinois Emergency Management Agency pre-disaster mitigation grant. We've been working on this grant since 2019 for the purchase and demo of properties, as we previously discussed in the floodway, and it requires a 25% match. The Fire Pension Fund. The presented budget has been accepted by the Firefighters Pension Fund Board of Trustees at their meeting on October 30th, 24, and includes a projection of over $2.3 million in earnings for fiscal year 2025. The Police Pension Fund, the presented budget has been accepted again by the Police Pension Fund Board of Trustees at their meeting October 30th, and includes a projection of over $2 million in earnings for fiscal year 2025. The Foreign Fire Fund, these funds are collected and remitted to us by the Illinois Municipal League. Insurance companies that are outside of Illinois that provide insurance within Illinois to pay into the fund. The Foreign Fire Insurance Board meets regularly and uses the funds for equipment to meet the department's needs. And we've gone over this earlier. And then last, I'm going to give over the podium to Ashley to go over the library budget.
Okay, good evening. And first of all, I want to remind you that this is a draft of the library's FY25 budget. We will not have a final budget until we receive the EAV, which is the equalized assessed value from the county. Once Director Richter receives these numbers, I'll finalize the library's budget and present it to the Library Board of Trustees for approval. The library revenue lines include income from property taxes, personal property, replacement taxes, miscellaneous grants, and donations from the Freeport Public Library Foundation. We make a transfer from our restricted reserve accounts to balance our budget. All capital improvement projects are funded with library funds only. We do not receive any revenue from the City of Freeport's funds for our operations or capital improvement projects. All our personnel expenses are on lines 213-000-5000 through 213-00-5295. I've updated a couple of staff expenditures since this report was created, and we are projected to spend about $16,000 less than what's on the report in front of you. The only large difference in the 24 and 25 budget line expense lines is 213-000-7010, and because this was moved to line 213-000-7040 capital outlay. Overall, this report shows we will overspend by $40,000. If you subtract the $16,000 I mentioned earlier without the EAV numbers, we are projected to spend $24,000 over our revenue amounts. This number will continue to decrease as I work with the library board and the finance director. As the budget becomes more balanced, I'll continue to share it with you. So I can go up there and move the slide around if you want me to. But do you have any questions?
Any questions, comments on the library? Thank you. Alderman Summers.
Maybe I missed it in your last statement, but you said there's going to be a deficit. So you're going to get back to us as you figure out how to
Yep.
manage that?
Yeah. So right now, the reason why we're not pushing too hard to take care of the deficit is because we could be able to capture that deficit with the EAV numbers, but without that, we can't finalize the budget.
Okay.
So once we have that piece, we will be able to report back.
Okay. I did miss that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Manager Boyer.
And we should be moving on to item 8. So this is the discussion of the tax abatement. Bear with me for a minute. So when the general obligation bonds are issued, they are backed by the city's ability to levy and collect property taxes. Therefore, the county automatically levies the required annual debt service from the City of Freeport property owners on their property tax bills. The city has historically abated or canceled this amount on the property taxes. By passing an ordinance each year, the property taxes that would otherwise be collected from the residents is abated. The city instead makes the debt service payment from other city revenues. So what you'll see, and I don't know, Kurt, if you can pull that table up, and if everybody could flip into their agenda and pull up this memo, there's a table that I'm referring to here. Below are the individual bond issues, the amounts to be abated, and the source of revenue that will be used to make the bond payment. We have also included the potential increased cost in property taxes on an average $100,000 home if these bonds were not abated. Ordinances to abate these bonds will be on the council agenda November 18th, so the next council meeting, 2024, and then will be second reading December 2nd, 2024. So we have several of them here, and I'll just go over them briefly. We have Bond 2013A, and that is the fire improvement source. It is the amount abated is $87,875. And that will be moving forward. And in addition to that, we have Series 2014B. That's for $1,083,143, and that is through the Sanitary Sewer Fund. We have Series 2015A, and that is $753,365, and the funding source for that is TIF, General Fund, Storm, and Sewer Funds. Series 2016, the amount abated is $181,855, and that is abated by the General Fund. Series 2018 is $90,215. That is abated by the downtown TIF revenue. The Series 2019A at $236,268.76 is abated through the Street Improvement Fund. Series 2020 is $3,299,368.10, and that is abated through the General Fund. And then Series 2021 is $240,800, and that is abated through the Street Improvement Fund as well. Series 2022, total amount is $252,232.50, and that is funded through the Fire Improvement Fund. So the total amount abated is $6,225,122.36. And if the abatement for some reason was not passed, then that would automatically incur an increase to property taxes of $832.88. However, we will not do that because we are moving forward. Staff is recommending moving forward with the abatements.
Just one.
Yes.
Alderman Seller.
Yeah, I'd like to know how long, or what is the plan to, this $6,225,000? What is the plan to get that down and get that a lot lower than that in some of these bonds? How much longer?
Well, we're paying on the bonds, the payments that were generated at the beginning of the bonds. We're making those payments, and then we're continuing to service that debt. So each one of those, Michelle might want to fill in some details, but as far as the total amount, we have some coming due soon, but there's quite a few there that will be a number of years. Michelle, could you kind of describe the scope of repayment?
So these bonds will take several years to pay off. When we take out a bond, it's usually 20 or 30 years. We did have, there's 9 bonds listed here right now. We currently have 10. We make the last payment on one of our sewer bonds this year. But the way the bonds are structured, so like if I compare it to a car loan or a house or something, you're paying a set amount every month. It's usually your loan payment, say you have to pay every month $500. When you do a bond, you can structure those payments. And so maybe you pay $500 for the first 5 years, and then you pay $1,000 for the next 5 years. You structure them how you think you'll be able to pay them. So the one bond that is going off this year, the amount that we pay for that bond is really just going to roll into the other sewer bond that we have because it was structured that way. So really, we don't have a real big savings on that because now we have to increase the amount on the other sewer one. But we do get rid of one bond, so now we're down to 9. But unfortunately, it will be many years before we get rid of these.
Alderman Stacy.
I didn't hear what he said when he was at the end. He said administration recommends something.
Just recommending moving forward with the bond abatement that we've done every year. That's all.
We're going to have to vote on.
Not tonight,
an
right?
ordinance on, at the next council meeting next
Right.
week, on an ordinance to abate the tax levy. Saying that we're not going to put it on the property tax, that we've got money in the budget to pay these payments, that we don't have to put it on property tax. Alderman Sanders.
Yeah, Manager Boyer, you look like you might be a little perplexed a little bit there.
Nope.
You okay? You got clarity there?
Crystal
You're all
clear.
right with it, in other words?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's all.
we've done this every year.
Anything else?
Okay, with that, I want to just move on to the discussion on the tax levy. And as Ashley pointed out, we have not received the city's tax levy yet. We anticipate it any day now, but we have budgeted according to last year's tax levy. We expect it might go up slightly, but we're not looking at those funds as solid. So we've budgeted as of last year's tax levy for the purposes of discussion tonight. Any questions on the tax levy? When that comes out, we'll bring it to council.
Do you have anything?
Kurt, if you could go ahead and just flip by. We're going to start, so we're going to move on to discussions of the budget revisions. So we started the budgeting process in August, and then we've kind of gotten whittled down to our final revisions. There's been a number of different changes to make sure that income is aligned with expenses. So I'm just going to hit the high points as we go through this. And I'd like to start with revenue. And Kurt, I'm just going to pop us over here. Just to kind of show you the total revenue we originally budgeted was about a little over $25 million, and upon further analysis, it should be a little over $26 million. So that's a main change. However, we are bringing in $1 million from fund reserve to pay for one-time grant matches for projects that we're working on. One of them is the EV chargers, the ITEP grant, the flood mitigation grant, the Safe Streets for All. These are all one-time expenses that we want to pull from fund reserve to go ahead and cover our match on those. Let's see here. Not a whole lot's changed on the city council. You'll see the salaries have been, the salary increases are reflected there. Not a tremendous amount, looking like about $2,000 impact to the budget. And item 112, commissions, nothing's changed there. City clerk, we've had a couple of small changes. Whoops, I'm sorry about that, Kurt. Stepping on you. One change we made here was we had a part-time clerk to help Debbie. We've removed that. And there's a few other little changes there.
What do you mean we moved that?
Well, for budget, we went back through the budget to line everything up, and we had to take out the part-time person, the part-time clerk.
Didn't we vote on that?
No. This is basically compared to the original budget that was put forward in front of council, starting in the end of August and going all through the fall. City manager, mayor, there's a few changes there.
I'm sorry, so are you saying that we're not gonna have a part-time?
That's correct. We're not.
Manager Ware, can I clarify? We have I think the misunderstanding is the deputy clerk that we have now.
No, we still have a deputy clerk. She's budgeted for, but this was in and above
The original
that.
budget showed funding
Yeah, it showed up.
for a part-time
Yes.
assistant.
So that'd be 2.5.
In reevaluating the budget, that was removed.
Any other questions on that?
You didn't answer his question. Are you said that?
That was a statement, that wasn't a question.
Okay, so we can't afford a part-time or we don't need a part-time?
Well, I mean, I'll let Dovey speak to that. I think we have a new deputy clerk who's doing a fantastic job, and when this was originally put together, it was based on the understanding from before our new deputy clerk. So, but please tell me if I'm right there, Dovey.
Go ahead, Clerk Anderson.
That's hopeful. However, I mean, it basically means I'm still behind. If more work needs to be done and I have to do it, I'm salaried, so I just make less per hour while I do it. There's no room in the budget for it.
Mr. Chair,
Alderman Clem.
so the moral of this story is if you want a part-time clerk, speak up.
If you want a part-time clerk, what?
Speak up. It's your budget.
Alderman Sellers.
I guess at that point, if it was put in there the first time, at the original time, and we did discuss that Debbie did need the extra help, if she says she's behind, there's no need in, if you're already behind, and we got more coming down the pipe, you're gonna get even more behind. I know we have the deputy clerk, and she's doing a wonderful job, but I guess it's, if it was on there originally, what was, I know you're saying, Debbie is saying that we don't have the money in the budget. You know, I guess I'm getting from you saying that we don't need it, or I don't
I'm
know.
not saying we don't need it. I'm just saying in all the priorities that we have,
Uh-huh.
that was, did not rise to the top of the priority list. We have street department, we've had a number of different cuts, plus we're looking at other future things for ASME. So we're trying to do everything we can
Okay.
on this end of things, taking out things in the budget that we can live without.
Okay.
And so I know Dovey does a tremendous job, and she does deserve as much help as she needs, but the budget is kind of demanding this.
And Chair,
Yes.
let me add, I'm okay with that. I mean, there's other things that got cut. I'm okay, and I'm certainly okay with giving it a year, reevaluating and seeing what next year's budget looks like, seeing what our current workload and the new deputy is doing. I'm fine with that, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk Anderson.
Okay, mayor, city manager, a small increase on the education and training travel item, with everything else pretty much being level. Communications department, no change there. Finance, very little change, very minute changes there. Legal, we did reduce legal slightly to line up with our activity for this last year, and our anticipated activity. Public Works, this is the Public Works Director. There's no budget there, and no changes. Government buildings, we had $200,000 in for storm windows. Those were removed. Hoping to get that finished up yet this year, if possible. Airport, we had no significant change, no changes at all for the airport. Street department, we made some changes on just tweaks on the withholdings and the wages and that. We reviewed that several times. We did take some out of contracted building repair and maintenance. We pulled a little bit out of infrastructure repair and maintenance. Engineering, we did take $100,000 out of engineering. We're changing project scope. So, in addition, on street budget, we also removed on equipment. We made some changes on the equipment. So it was originally budgeted at $70,000, now at $45,000. So And then lastly, we had made some adjustments to the capital outlay, one of which was the salt shed. We took that out of the budget.
The salt shed?
Yes, the salt shed needs pretty significant repairs, but we're going to have to look and figure out what we can do differently there.
Alderman Sanders.
Manager Boyer, is that gonna happen soon?
The salt shed,
Yes.
it'll probably be next spring at the soonest.
But we can get by.
Yes, I mean, we'll get by. We're going to have to look at some other alternates to make that salt shed last, so.
Okay. Thanks.
There's just been a few small adjustments to the cemetery budget. Nothing notable there. Same thing with forestry. Traffic engineering, similar situation. No changes there. Street lights, we did reduce street lights. Originally, we had 20,000 in for contract equipment repair and maintenance. We dropped that to 10,000. And this is a common theme. We really made some hard decisions, making things work, so. Yep.
Alderman Sully.
When you talk about the street lights, are we talking about just the bulbs or changing, or is there anything out there for adding more lights?
Oh, so all of the lights, most of the lights that are out in the city are actually ComEd lights. A couple of years ago, we redid all the downtown street lights, and that was through a grant through ComEd. And then we budget so much money per year to maintain the lights that we maintain. So IDOT corridors in the downtown are primarily all of them. So just to give you an example, there wasn't a tremendous amount coming out of this budget item, and in order to get things balanced out, we reduced that by 10,000. But
Alderman Sanders.
Yeah, Manager
Yep.
Boyer, would that also include residential?
no, sir.
Residential?
No, sir.
No, it doesn't. Okay, I didn't hear you. the first
No, it's primarily our downtown street lighting power bill. That's what most of this budget is.
Okay, have there been requests or complaints about lighting in residential areas?
Well, yes, there's right now I think most of the light bulbs in the residential areas are owned by ComEd, and they're 35-watt LEDs.
Okay.
That has been brought to the attention of ComEd, and no change has been forthcoming.
So what can the city do about that?
We can continue to ask, but we are dealing with a large corporation, and it's governed by the Illinois Commerce Commission. And if they have developed a standard for all communities at 35 watts, they're in line with their policy. That's what we get.
But if they're not lit up, if they're not at the potential of 35 watt,
So are you saying if we haven't measured the lumens? I think they have a replacement schedule. I don't know precisely what that is, but I would say within 15 or 20 years they need to be replaced. But again, 35-watt LEDs are not real bright. We did put much brighter lights downtown because we control those.
no joke.
So, and then on IDOT corridors, we're searching outside money for getting the IDOT corridor lights fixed. So like the intersection of West and South, up and down on West Street, on Galena. These are areas that are IDOT controlled, and we're looking for changes to our status as a preferred community with ComEd that will open up dollars that will give us grant money to take care of those lights in the IDOT corridors.
Great.
The standard street lights, when ComEd did the replacements, that's part of the energy reduction program, and that's why they switched them over to LEDs, and they're a lower looms, and that's throughout every municipality, was to green energy and reduce their take on the cities for lighting dollars.
Alderman Sellers.
I would like for us to try to find out how we can add more lights to residential areas, because I do get a lot of complaints about how dark areas are, and then even how dark they are where they're committing crimes, because it's dark there. And I'm telling you, that's everywhere. So if there was some way that we can, I know $300,000 for downtown, but we need to get, maybe if there's something out there that we can get more bright lights all over the city. I know years ago, Tom, remember, they were looking at trying to get more lights throughout the community, especially, you know, in dark areas.
Joy, just keep in mind that that is actually just the power bill.
Oh,
That's the 300,000 is the
1,000?
power bill,
Okay,
yeah.
wow.
I have a question.
Alderman Stacy.
The ASME union went from 168 to 177. What is that? Wage increase?
We put in a nominal figure just to get, to have something in the budget for that.
What does that mean? You just made up a number?
No, we know we're going to be doing increases, but we are looking at I don't know, Michelle, if you want to jump in, that's fine on that one.
So we did, like city manager said, we did put in a slight increase for AFSCME. We know we're going into negotiations next year. We are negotiating right now with police. So those were two things that are really, I don't know, pressing upon me and the city manager as far as moving forward and getting a balanced budget. In the past, what we could do is once things are negotiated and settled, we've done rebudgets before. Like, for example, when COVID happened, the city put a hold on everything in that March, and we redid the whole budget, brought it to council, talked it through. So the process of bargaining, we don't know how things are going to come out at this time. So we're doing our best proactive work here in this budget.
Okay, so this number that you have inserted, at what rate increase is that?
City manager.
Yeah, it's approximately 5% is there now. Okay, with that, I'd like to continue on. One more. There you go. Thank you. Community development. We made some adjustments there. Nothing earth-shaking, but there was an adjustment downward on education training. Police. We made several adjustments. Several of them are down slightly. We're looking at various overtimes, doing our best to control that. Also, we had some other upward pressure on the budget, and then we also had a position that we removed from there that was not going to be filled. I'm also reflecting here the decrease in PEP as our negotiation goes forward. That will be impacted by our police negotiation. Okay, with that, I'd like to move on to fire. Again, working with Chief Miller, identified areas, potential savings. However, we are looking at the safety grant. We've programmed in some funds for training for recruits that could be funded through the safety grant. We'll have to see where that goes. And we also did we removed a project from the contracted building repair and maintenance. There's a sewer line that needs updating over at the park fire station. So that was taken out. Any questions on fire? Okay, moving on to building. Just a number of slight changes there. Nothing of any significance there. Animal control, again, just slight changes, nothing of significance. Hearing and admin, no change there. Human resources, just some slight changes, nothing significant. Information systems, it was requested a full-time helper with IT. Again, we're looking to kind of keep things level. Therefore, that was removed from the budget. We also had a few, ancillary wage level changes, the withholdings and things changed in combination with that. Interdepartmental, some of this is related to our retirees. We believe we have a couple of people dropping off of group insurance this year, so that's reflected there in the change. And then we've also got capital improvement and grant match. Those have been added. The grant match there is the projects we talked about earlier. So, and the last one is the landfill withholding. We're reducing the amount going back to the landfill fund. Projects fund, basically we're taking the sidewalk grant down from 20,000 to 10, and so that essentially some savings that we were able to gain there. Neighborhood housing fund, some marginal changes. Michelle, did you want to comment on any of those?
Neighborhood housing.
Yeah.
Neighborhood housing, we just added the real estate tax line item. So when we acquire a property, we take on the property taxes for that property until we can get it exempted. So we have to fill out some paperwork to get it exempted. So we're usually liable for a little portion of the property taxes for a property when we acquire it. So I thought it more appropriate to be in this fund rather than the general fund, because we're gonna, usually demo it out of this one or a grant. So that's the difference there. And the 55,000 transfer out, that is the grant match for the single-family housing rehab grant right there. So that's where the grant match comes from for that particular grant.
Alderman Sanders?
Yeah, I can barely read that last line you were speaking of. What is those numbers?
Alderman Sanders, we actually have a printed out hard copy there at your desk.
Oh, I was just following.
Yeah, you've got a hard copy if you need it as well.
I just wanted.
Which one?
Just the line, transfer out.
Yeah.
I couldn't see that number.
55,
Is that 55? Okay.
yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, well, we're getting close here. We probably got time for a couple more. Oh, healthcare, oops. Healthcare fund, no changes there. Let's see, OV, we've already discussed the grant funds. I'm going to move that down.
What is OVW for?
That was the Office of Violence Against Women grant for the police department. We talked about that earlier. It's okay, library fund, no changes there. Oh, well, Ashley discussed that. I'm sorry. Ashley just brought that up. Sorry about that. Motor fuel tax fund. Just realigning some of the revenue figures here. No major changes. Downtown revitalization loan fund. That is set up to for downtown redevelopment. No changes there. Public safety fund, no changes there. Cemetery care fund, no changes there. Downtown TIF, we had a couple of small changes, but pretty much everything lines up. Lamb Road TIF, no changes. And I think I'm out of time. So with that, we'll pick this up after the meeting.
Thank you. Is there, we'll save the summary discussion for later. Should we save public comments till after we finish?
I think so, yeah. If we have to
Just
finish
do it
this
in
out,
order.
it's not time for public comments yet, I would say.
So we would need a motion to
Recess?
recess this meeting till after the regular council meeting. Could I get a motion to
So moved.
recess this? Motion by Sellers,
Second.
second by Clem. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?